Psychedelic substances gathered from natural ingredients have been used throughout different times and geographical locations by various people, individually or in groups. As such, when discussing the role that psychedelic substances play throughout history in spiritual practices, we must at first distinguish what it means for one to have a shared spiritual experience. This experience is separate from how particular cultures and religions interpreted their own unique experiences. Generally, psychedelic drugs produce visions and other sensations that would not otherwise be experienced by the user. Indeed, the roots psyche and del in psychedelic refers to the more intense experience felt by the mind. The spiritual realm is the feeling of experiences and information becoming manifest to which one usually does not have access. An entheogen is an academic term used when psychedelics generate the experience of God within. Psychedelics include a wide variety of natural and synthetic materials. Accordingly, the mechanisms of action by which they allow the user to be made aware of the spiritual realm can differ. For example, let us look at soma, which is the oldest psychedelic used in recorded history. The Aryans of ancient India used it over 3,500 years ago. Soma is extracted from the mushroom Amanita muscaria or fly agaric. Fly agaric's psychedelic properties are associated with two main chemicals, ibotenic acid and mucimol. Mucimol triggers a physiological response in one of the many different nerve receptors in the brain called GABA receptors. Some researchers believe that one of the purposes that GABA serves is to decrease the fear or anxiety experienced when neurons are overexcited. These GABA receptors are typical and widely distributed throughout the central nervous system. In other words, mucimol reduces stress and excitation. On the other hand, ibotenic acid triggers another type of receptor called NMDA receptors. Researchers continue to study the effects of these complex interactions. Both GABA and NMDA receptors suppress theta waves during sleep in rats, and mucimol has increased REM sleep. Theta brainwaves occur when you're sleeping or dreaming, but they happen during the lighter sleep phases, like when you are drifting off to sleep or suspended in that light phase of sleep just before you wake up. REM is a kind of sleep that occurs at intervals during the night, accompanied by rapid eye and bodily movement, faster pulse, and breathing, but it involves more deep dreaming. These responses may explain why fly agaric is the archetypal shamanic trance drug. The shaman can be kept lightly asleep but experience deep dreaming states. On the other side of history, lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, is a relatively recent psychedelic discovered in the past century. First located not from plants but in a lab by Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann in 1937, LSD was reported by Hofmann to produce a feeling like a trip in the universe of the soul, and that God is in everything. Research suggests that the mechanism for LSD is its effect on another receptor called the serotonin or 5-HT receptors. The concentration of 5-HT2A receptors exists in different activity areas of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex, claustrum, olfactory nuclei, and basal ganglia. These are the receptors that are primarily responsible for psychedelic experiences. But research shows that these same centers are affected by spiritual practices without psychedelics. Therefore, although the chemical structures of LSD and the compounds of fly agaric are different, and their histories separated by several thousands of years, the commonalities between these two substances appear to be closely related to their actions on the brain. Research has shown this to be true of other psychedelics as well. As mentioned before, altered states of consciousness have been an essential part of shamanic rituals for millennia. Belief is that these rituals emerged from the collective group as a survival mechanism. The consulting of shamans aided the tribal group to solve conflicts when the solutions obtained in ordinary life had been exhausted. Research using electroencephalography or brainwave mapping has shown some commonalities between shamanic states of consciousness, whether attained via psychedelics or not. A study by Canadian and French researchers Flo Henry, Shapiro, and Sombrun in 2017 summarized these commonalities, which included more significant right brain activity, the greater amplitude of alpha waves, and a decrease in the frontal lobe and limbic activity. Flo Henry and colleagues also measured the brain waves of a person entering a shamanic trance state. Collaborating the previous research, they found that their subject experienced a shift in activity from the ordinary anterior prefrontal cortex activity to the right posterior. This activity is associated with a change of awareness away from the me, not me distinction consistent with psychedelics' transcendent effects. The research into psychedelics and altered states of consciousness is still picking up after decades of stagnation. What is clear from the current study is the reproducibility of the effects of the psychedelics on the mind. However, studies have also shown that psychedelics mechanisms lead to a decrease in sensitivity over time. For example, we need increasing doses of LSD to achieve the same intensity as the prior experience. This increase means that there is a danger for abuse and medically dangerous levels of overconsumption. There is now a shift in the West's culture from studying altered states of consciousness solely regarding their pathology or illness. The focus is on exploring another part of life that deals with the mind's expansiveness. We should respect psychedelics for what they are, merely a path to altered states of consciousness, which may or may not be any better than the ordinary view of life or committed spiritual practice. In the next video, we will explore the effects and legacy of the South Central American psychedelic ayahuasca. Between every 2 episodes of Psychedelics and Spirituality, we will introduce another topic of interest. So before we return to this series, join us for a challenge. Where are you on your spiritual path?